Alright everyone, welcome to a simple leveling slash questing guide for Tera. I will be including as much information as I can possibly think of at the time of recording. The first thing we're going to do is explain what screen that we're on in the beginning, and then we'll move on from there. So, the screen that we're currently on is your server select screen. Currently on the PlayStation 4 in the US, there are two servers that are active. There's a PvE server and a PvP server. PvE stands for player versus environment. PvP stands for player versus player. As far as I know, there is no great distinction between the two. As of recording on February 21st of 2019, there is a massive update coming out in April. Maybe we'll see some extra updates to the two servers and see a more significant difference. I will not be playing on Darkon server because that is where my main characters are at, and they are currently already level 65, so it would not be very much interesting or useful to see them. So we're going to go to the PvP server that I usually use for testing purposes. It's worth noting I haven't been playing too terribly long. It's all fresh information on my mind, so I figured it'd be a good time to create a guide. I do currently have a ninja on this server. Testing out the ninjas, see if I like them. They seem to be pretty okay. We're going to create a new character by pressing square off of the current character menu. There are seven races in Tera. Starting from the top, working our way down, we have Castanic, Human, Amon, High Elf, Popori, Elin, and Baraka. To my knowledge, there are no significant differences as far as each race having their own special benefits. There are minor things like increased crafting speed, increased swim speed, different races get different teleports to different cities at certain levels as a, I would guess you would assume it's called a racial, so a racial teleport to a city. Each race does have a set what would be the word? List. There we go. There's a set list of classes that you can choose from. Sitting on top of the Castanic, moving over to the right-hand side of the screen to select your class by pressing R1 on the PlayStation 4. We can see that there are Berserkers, Mystics, Lancers. Reapers are Elins. They can only be played by Elins. This is a basic look of what they look like. Slayer, which can be played by, I believe, all races. Brawlers, which can only currently be played by human females. In the current version of the PC version of the game, I believe that human males can also be brawlers. I don't know if we're going to be getting caught up to that or not. Excuse me, anytime soon. Then we have the warrior. Gunners, at the moment, can either be chosen by Castanics or High Elves. In April of 2019, there is an update coming along that will be adding Elans to the list of gunners that you can choose. And we have Sorcerer, Ninja, another race locked class, can only be played by Elan. Archers, Valkyries, which can only be played by Castanix and is currently the newest class. I happen to like the Valkyries quite a bit. They deal quite a bit of burst damage after a small windup. And then the Priest. Now, for the major majority, most of these classes can be played by every race. Berserkers, Mystics, Lancers, Slayers, Warriors, Sorcerers, Archers, and Priests. So everything on the left-hand side can be played by every class. I'm almost 100% positive about it. We'll even double check just to make sure, because I don't want to give out any wrong information. Just watching the right-hand side of the screen here to see what does and does not become the game. So, in thinking that I am correct, also on the list of everything that can be played by every, or a class that can be played by every race, includes the Mystic. There is what I would call, from my time in playing World of Warcraft for several years, there is a hero class that can be unlocked at level 40, which is the Reaper. You get any class, any character on a current server to level 40, and you gain access to the Reaper. I have not played extensively every class in the game. I have, however, played up to level 20 at least for every class in the game. I have a basic understanding how every class works. The classes that I have spent the most time on are the Mystic, Priest, Valkyrie, Reaper, and Brawler. The rest of the classes, I have spent enough time to understand their basic function, how they work basically mechanically. Starting at the top, we'll look at the Berserker. It says it's burst, DPS, melee, heavy armor. All those things are true. Something to take point on is there are things in Tera called, I want to say, dodges, blocks, and parries is the best way I can describe them. They are things that you have to do in the middle of a fight that will help to mitigate damage and or completely negate damage altogether. Not every class is capable of this. The ones that I know of that are capable of this type of mechanic are Berserker, the Lancer, the Brawler, the Valkyrie, and the Reaper. Each one of them have their own version of the mechanic, this mitigation mechanic. Each one of them work differently. I can say for a fact that the Reaper's mechanic, dodge mechanic, is on a comparatively to the other classes, that's a fairly significant cooldown. I believe it's somewhere between 5 to 10 seconds. I'm not 100% sure if it can be glyphed to bring the cooldown lower. I will be explaining glyphs later. The Brawler also has a mechanic quite like this. As a matter of fact, this is what I would call a combo heavy character. You can think of the Brawler as basically playing a fighting game within an MMO. They're very focused upon melee combos using their power gloves. at the end of most of their basic combos is a block mechanic that will help to mitigate damage. Uh, this is one of the more powerful classes, I would say, in the game because of that mechanic. I personally have gone through the first dungeon that you gain access to, the Bastion of Locke, with a brawler. Peter leveled, I believe I was the 22 or 23, was having a hard time gaining a group, so I soloed the dungeon. So take that with any amount of salt that you wish to take. They're a fairly decent class to play, very combo heavy, as I was saying. It's worth taking some time to learn the combo. Berserkers have a, I want to say it's either a parry or block mechanic. I cannot remember for sure. This is one of the first classes that I played. Their swings are a little slow for my personal taste. So after I got to level 21 and out of the first dungeon, I was like, well, let's see what else is available. And after I'd seen everything else that it is available, I decided to move away from the Berserker. There are people who have told me, up to my knowledge at this point in the PlayStation 4 version of the game, that the Berserkers are a very good PvP character to choose if that's what you're looking to do in game, whether beginning or late game, because of their mitigation mechanic. I've said mitigation a few times now. I should explain what it means. Mitigation is basically whatever damage that is inflicted onto you by a monster or player character, you mitigate or absorb and nullify portions of that damage. Mitigation shouldn't be thought of as a way to, escape damage or to lower damage. It's not so much that I think it should be looked at as a survival. Well, not survival. There's a specific word that I'm thinking of that I would like to say, but I can't think of the proper word for it. You should think of mitigation as a way of being more efficient in taking damage. Because of your heavy armor and the block mechanics that come along with being a berserker, you are more efficient at dealing with damage than let's say a mystic, for example. Because of their light armor robes, they take quite a bit of damage from let's see, how can I say this? A mystic and a berserker can be taking on the same target, and say a target gives you a standard melee attack. The berserker will take less damage, mostly because of their heavy armor, and the rogues, and the mystic will take more damage based upon firstly their light robes armor, but beyond that, the mitigation mechanic makes the berserker more efficient at dealing with damage, which is why they're better for a close range engagement with slower attacks. They have to be able to put up with more damage. They have to be able to efficiently deal with damage in order to do their job as a berserker. As far as I know, as of right now, the berserkers are also one of the highest damaging classes in the game at the moment. As I've said, I don't have a wealth of personal experience with the character. Let's go ahead and start moving on. The Mystic is one of the characters that I've got quite a bit more experience with. They are marked as a healer support ranged character that uses light robes. I mean, I guess that's mostly accurate, but if I have any World of Warcraft buffs in the viewership, they feel to me as what would happen if you got a paladin and a warlock together and mixed them together. The Mystic has auras, 4 different auras, that can be broadcasted in groups of 2 to a surrounding party to give them buffs. They are very heal-centric, so I would definitely class them as a healer class. They also have, as a warlock would, a summon. There are 4 different summons, 2 damage dealing summons, 2 mitigation or tank type summons, or rather, let's just say mitigation summons. One of them is a tank, one of them is a heal, a personal heal. After that, you have their dot dealing damage, which is DOT. It stands for damage over time. They have 2. One is on a higher cooldown, deals quite a bit of damage, spreads to other targets that get near the area, so good with big groups. Not as extremely effective against bosses, considering there's usually only one boss within a room. Basic understanding of a Mystic. Moving on to the Lancers. Less knowledge with them. Haven't done a lot with them. I do have someone in our guild, the Darkon Knights, on the Darkon server that plays a Lancer. He enjoys it quite a bit. As far as what I've seen by being one of the main heals in our guild, that they are extremely efficient at mitigating damage. Lancer mitigation, melee, heavy armor. Their heavy armor helps to keep them from taking damage in the first place. They have, as I was explaining before, a mitigation mechanic with their shield. Fun note, anyone standing behind the Lancer, when the Lancer is blocking, will be able to skip, or not skip, but not take certain CC or crowd control type mechanics, roots, stuns, silences, things of that nature. There are some that can be dodged by standing behind your Lancer. There are some that cannot be dodged. I think that's just about it with Lancer. Very tanky, pretty straightforward, just your standard tank and spank type class. I don't believe they have a lot of extra fluff, as I might say. A lot of extra oomph behind their character. They're very simple. Get in there, hit it, keep the rest of the team from taking damage. As far as I know, they do have slight problems with aggro. Aggro is aggravation towards an enemy. It marks whether the enemy is going to attack one target over another. You can think of it as percentage based. If you have 5 people in a group, each character is, if the entire party is taking equal amounts of aggro, then every person has 20%. That's highly inefficient, because if you have squishy characters or rogue characters in the background, you don't want them being targeted by most of the standard attacks of the boss or any particular group of enemies. You want to, as the tank, be doing the efficient mitigation of the damage, so that the damage is being dealt with efficiently. As far as I'm concerned, that's what a lot of dungeons come down to in this game, is the efficient dealing of damage and mitigation of damage from groups of trash mobs and bosses alike. Another huge major mechanic is dodging. We'll get into that whenever we start looking at dungeons. The Reaper is the next class in the game. Mid-range DPS, Elan only. It's a race locked class. Light armor. I believe they wear leather armor. They're quite mobile. Mid-range is what is definitely the word that I would choose for their damaging range style. They're definitely not long range, but they are certainly not short range either. Their leather armor does not deal with damage efficiently enough to have them stay close range for extended periods of time. Otherwise, you are possibly putting more stress on your healer than what is necessary. They do wield dual-sized attached to chains. First thing I think of when I hear that is Kratos from the God of War series. You can definitely think of your Reaper as being something akin to that, as Kratos from the God of War series. Not a whole lot there. I think this is also another fairly, I want to say fairly popular PvPing class. They have great mobility for player versus player engagements. They have good stuns, a wide range of abilities that are very PvP focused. So does the Mystic, now that I think about it, but I have not seen a Mystic do well in a PvP battle yet, so I'm hesitant to say that they're popular from PvP play. I think that's about it. Moving on to the Slayers, I want to say they're very close to the Berserkers in playstyle. Slow swing, high damage. The only large difference is they are a light armor class. They do have the ability to move around quite a bit. They have a lot of attacks that focus on knockdowns and CC effects. I think that's just about it with them. They're fairly simple, along the lines of the Berserker and the Lancer. Most of the melee classes in the game are fairly simple. I don't believe the rotation for the Slayer is terribly complicated. Speaking about rotations, before we get too terribly farther in, the Berserker, as far as I know, has a more complicated rotation type due to their block mechanic. The Mystic's rotation type is as complicated as you want it to be. I'll be explaining more on that. I'm pretty sure we're going to be choosing a Mystic as our leveling character. They are, in my opinion, probably the most broken class in the game as of right now, as far as their ability to solo quest, which is what this video series is going to be about. The Lancer, very simple rotation. Their tanking rotation, as far as I have heard, is not terribly complicated. The Reaper rotation is complicated. You have to think about making sure that you're dodging damage, dealing damage, and restoring health to yourself through some of their abilities. Stealing health is a part of their kit that you need to focus on. I would say. Slayers, as far as I know, they don't have a terribly complicated rotation. I believe it can be complicated depending on how many CC effects that you want to keep track of that you can deal out. Moving on to the Brawler, as I said before, as far as I know, they will not be gender locked for forever. The foreseeable future does not have that in the patch notes for the large April update that will be coming along. Like the Berserker and the Lancer, they do have a mitigation mechanic that is centered around blocking and combos. They have, as far as I know, 5 different basic combos with a block at the end. They all center around auto-attacking and then countering, I believe is what the ability is specifically called, is called counter. So, an easy way to explain a basic rotation, very basic rotation, would be your R2, which is your basic attack button, your default basic attack button, and then L2 for the Brawler is your default counter button. So it would be something along the lines of thinking in a fighting game like R2, L2. And that would make you do a simple punch coupled with a block at the end of the punch, stringed along with it. That's what I should say. Combo strings. Another one would be R2, R2, L2. After that, R2, 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 L2. Then R2, 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 L2. Each one of them ends with a different type of combo attack that has the ability to block and mitigate damage. They also, each one of those makes your character do a different type of CC. I believe the first one is just a simple punch. The first R2, L2 is just a simple punch. R2, R2, L2 is a... Let's see. R2, R2, L2 is a knock-up, I believe. R2, 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 L2 is a area of effect pull. It yanks enemies in. Good for grouping up enemies. And then your R2, 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 L2. 4 R2s and then an L2 is a knockdown. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I would say that they're probably a more complicated rotation to remember. Also remembering that what I just explained has nothing to do with any of their specific skills that you'll also find on some of the other buttons on the controller. So I would, yeah, I'd definitely say that they're probably one of the more complicated classes in the game now that I think about it. I've been playing fighting games since I was a small kid, so the pickup for me wasn't as difficult. But if you're not a person that has played many fighting games or understands combat or combo strings, I could see how it could be difficult. So maybe the Brawler not the perfect for a beginner's character because of their complex style. They're very fun to play though. Very fun. Very, very fun. The whole giant fists thing coming at somebody with just your, quote unquote bare hands is very satisfying to play. Moving on to the Warrior. Another leather armor class. Much, much faster attack style than the other two melee-centric focus styles that we've seen. Speaking of the Berserker and the Slayer. Maybe on par with the Reaper as far as attack speed. They are, as far as I know, they are a class that depends upon shouts and stances, as the Warrior in World of Warcraft does, to modify and increase their abilities depending on the situation. They say that they have said that they're an extremely, it says in the description, evasion tank, sustained DPS, melee, light armor. As far as I've seen, and this may be operator error or player error, Warriors do take an extensive amount of damage. I have not extensively played one myself, so I could not say to the effect beyond the first dungeon. If you're not dodging, as I explained before, would be a very important thing to remember, then you're not going to do well as far as not taking damage. And you will die a lot because you are wearing light armor or leather armor, which is the mid-range armor in the game. As far as I know, their rotation is not terribly complicated. There are several people in the guild that say that they're, pretty simple and straightforward, easy to play. I know the complexity rating on this one is quite a bit higher than some of the other classes that we've seen. But as far as I know, they're not terribly complicated. I would have to get on and play them quite a bit more than what I have to give you a more detailed instruction as to how they play. They're probably my least most played of all of them. I did bring all these characters, at least once to level 21, 22, so I could do the first dungeon and get a feel for their dungeon play style. Because playing in the open world, playing in a dungeon, and playing PvP type engagements are all completely separate from each other and have a completely different feel. Some of them even as far as the Mystic, as I've seen, require completely different bars. Um, the Reaper is another character who, as far as I know, they have specific PvP skills that you can use, but are not normally located on your standard bar. So you have to go look for them and create bars that are specifically designed for PvPing engagements. And that's just about it with the warrior. Moving on to the gunner. The gunners are slow attacking, ranged burst DPS characters. They can take quite a bit of damage. They are, in my opinion, very slow. So slow that, to the effect of the Berserker, I did not enjoy their playstyle as much. Maybe when the Elin comes out, the feel of the character will be a bit more zippy and, agile. But until that happens, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a terribly fun class to play. Maybe this might be your thing, giant gun on a character. Completely up to each person. They have traps that can be set. They have knockbacks. As far as I know, they have the highest auto attack damage of any character in the game. Their standard attack is also an AoE. It's naturally AoE. They deal quite a bit of damage, as far as I know, in the correct hands. Not what I would consider, as far as I've heard, a PvP class. Very much so good at dealing with large groups of enemies. Single target damage for boss fights, as far as I know, is not terribly great, but is serviceable under the right hands. They do also come with a summon or a pet. It's a bot. You get, I believe it's 2 or 3 different types. There's a healer, a single target damage dealer, and a stationary machine gun bot turret thing that applies damage. I believe there's 3. It may be only 2, but I believe it's 3. Moving on to the sorcerer. Burst damage, ranged, clothy character. Just I would say your standard sorcerer type character. They deal a quite significant amount of AoE and single target damage if the boss and or group of trash mobs can be locked down. So I would say very dependent upon CCs. Some of their spells take quite a bit of time to get off, but extremely worth it if you've got a good group together that can keep a group of mobs and or a boss locked down in a position long enough to deal their rotation. They deal extensive amounts of damage. Very, very squishy. You don't want them on the front lines whatsoever at all. I think that's about it with them. Their rotation is fairly simple. Not a whole lot to them. On that note, I don't believe the gunner's rotation is terribly complicated. I think their rotation can become complicated in the later game whenever you add in bot usage and different other CC type skills that they have available to them, what with traps and everything. Not to try to move back too terribly far, but I think the gunner in Tera is more closely related to the hunter of World of Warcraft, considering their pet usage, their ranged nuke abilities, their ranged abilities, and their trap setup. That's probably I'd probably say that's a good parallel as the hunter. Moving on past the sorcerer to the ninja. I think that their description is pretty apt. Sustained DPS. They are an Elin only class. Light armor, don't want to get them on the front lines. Their evasion is key in order to play this character. you definitely 100% want to stay behind your enemy and out of harm's way to deal your damage. Decent damage dealers as far as I know. They have a mix of ranged and melee abilities. Melee focused definitely, but they do have a few ranged abilities that allow them under certain circumstances to continue a rotation without having to be directly on top of a target. Speaking of which, their rotation is, as far as I've played, it's fairly simple. I'm currently working on one to see what they're like later game. Don't think there's too much else to say about them. I guess moving on to the archer. Another one of the classes that I haven't spent extensive amounts of time with. As far as I know, right now they're having a DPS problem. This was corrected in the PC version of the game, which is years ahead of us as far as I know. As of right now, with what research I've done, they are years ahead of us as far as updates and patches and fixing different game mechanics. There's even a completely different upgrade system for gear in the game. Not too dissimilar from what we have going right now, but definitely more complicated. I'll be speaking more on that here quite soon, whenever we get the game started up. Sustained DPS, ranged, light armor. Don't want them on the front lines at all. They take quite a bit of damage. Lots of CCs. I believe they do have a few dot effects, damage over time effects. Other than that, I think they're fairly straightforward. It's an archer. Definitely not a parallel that I would say is... they are not a parallel that I would make with hunters in World of Warcraft at all. The gunners are definitely a better parallel for the hunters in World of Warcraft. Quite a bit slower firing as the gunners may be from the hunters in World of Warcraft, but definitely a better mechanical parallel. Moving on from the archer to the Valkyrie. This is another one of the classes that I've got extensive knowledge with. This is actually my current DPS class of choice. As far as I've personally played, they have the most damage potential that I have seen of any class in the game. They have extremely high DPS. I would not say that their rotation is simple. Their rotation works upon a what could be paralleled on the Assassins of World of Warcraft. There's a combo system, combo point system rather, not a combo string system, more of a combo point system. The Valkyries is based upon critical attacks. Lots of abilities have the ability to automatically critical, which gives them a point. It's a fairly steady rotation. It's easy to learn if you put the time into learning it. If you want something that's a little bit more, what I would call brain dead, I would not choose the Valkyrie. Even though they are extremely high DPS, it does take time to learn them. Thinking about this now, I can't believe I forgot. The Berserkers actually do have a combo point system as well that is similar to the Valkyrie. I can't remember exactly how it works. Again, it's not one of the classes that I've had extensive knowledge with. Valkyries also work upon light armor. It's leather armor. They can take a fair amount of damage. They're not unlike the Reapers in that there are a couple of abilities that do return health. There is an ability that keeps you from being knocked down, so it makes it easier to get out of sticky situations. This is another class that does have a mitigation mechanic in place to deal with damage. As far as I know, you can completely avoid damage on the Valkyrie if your timing is just right for their dodge mechanic. I think that's just about it on the Valkyrie. Extremely, extremely high amounts of DPS. I can't stress that enough. Very, very high DPS. As far as I know, on the PC version of the game, the Valkyries, the Archers, the Berserkers, and the, I believe, Sorcerers? Or maybe I think Warrior may be 4th or 5th on the list, and then Sorcerers 4th or 5th on the list as highest DPS characters in the game, but definitely top 3 is uh, Valkyrie, Berserker, and Archer in that order. Valkyrie, Berserker, Archer. Extremely, extremely high DPS on the PC version of the game. Hopefully we'll be getting the updates for the Archer that fix their DPS problems. Moving on to the last class. This is also another class that I have extensive knowledge on. Their description is fairly accurate. Healer buffs, ranged robes. I don't believe that their buffs are as extensive as the Mystics as far as supportive characters go. They are one of the only two, Mystic being the other, healing classes in the game. I will say that easily their healing outshines the Mystic very, very easily. The Mystics, I want to say, are more of a heal. They're more of a HOTS type heals, but not a heal and forget type character. None of the characters in the game are heal and forget type characters, like you would see with maybe a druid in World of Warcraft, where you apply a hot and then you move on to the next target, and then you apply a hot and move on to the next target. I believe, not playing World of Warcraft in a very long time, that those are called group heals. I don't believe that either class is focused on group heals. If I were to say which one does it better, I would definitely say the priest, just purely because their healing is just... their heal numbers are just much, much, much higher than the Mystics. Mystics are, I want to say, are more dual focused on damage and heals. They can do both very well, and their auras are also very helpful, something that you don't have to keep thinking about constantly. The buffs on the priest are something that you have to think about at any given time. You may have to reapply them depending on which glyphs that you choose to apply to your character. You'll have to apply them more often. Outside of that, their damage rotation is, I'm pretty sure that their damage rotation is the absolute simplest rotation in the entire game. As far as I'm concerned, it's one button. It really is just one button. They have one damage over time ability, I believe. And that's basically it. You mash the triangle button and make sure that your dot stays up. That's the extent of your damage dealing. So much to the effect that I would say that the priest is best used within a group that has extremely high damage. Maybe a little bit lower on the mitigation side. If I had to put, just quickly in my head something together as a team that would be very, very good with a Mystic, is a brawler for your main tank, a Valkyrie for the extreme high DPS. You could go with a sorcerer and an archer, or a warrior or a slayer, even with their extremely low armor rating. I would say it's not something that you have to worry about too terribly much, because the priest is extremely, extremely good at healing. That's their main focus. If you're going to put a priest in your party, make sure that their only focus is healing, because that's what they do best. If you want to add a little bit of extra damage to your party, if you've already got, let's say, a Lancer in your group, something that can really, really take a hard beating, I would definitely say Lancers and Mystics are very good together, and then Priests and Brawlers are probably the next best well-rounded group, because the Brawler deals quite a bit more damage than the Lancer. It's that trade-off of not so much dealing with damage as so much making sure the damage is healed immediately after it's applied. I think that's just about it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just about it as a basic overview. Obviously, there's four classes that I have extensions knowledge on. The rest are, more or less in certain varieties. For this playthrough, we will be playing a Mystic. I personally enjoy playing the Elan class because they're smaller and zippier. The Papori is also another good choice for the smaller, zippier kind of class. Maybe we play Papori. Just to poke at the lore a little bit, I'll go ahead and read off each race's quick description. Cunning, fiery, ready to seize their destiny. Fun fact, their capital city has the only brothel in the game. Humans, alone we gain hope, together we gain victory. I would say that they're very quintessential human characters. There's some good ones and bad ones in the bunch. As far as good versus evil, there's some good ones and bad ones in the bunch. Funny thing is that particular human character looks kind of like an enemy that you see later on in the game. Amon are... I mean, the only thing I can say about them is they are... I want to say that they remind me the most of maybe the Gorons in the Legend of Zelda series. They definitely have a warrior's culture. We lovingly call them the Dragon People in our guild. Moving on to the High Elves. Quintessential High Elf. What's the term that I could use? They're very haughty, I guess is what you could say. Very full of themselves. Definitely have the nose stuck up in the ear type mentality. Moving on to the Papori and the Elan together. It's worth mentioning them both together because in one of the original builds of the game on PC, the Papori and the Elan were a single race. And Elan is a Papori. Let that sink in for a second. A Papori, all Elans are Paporis. Not all Paporis are Elans. There we go. That's the best way to describe it. All Elans are Paporis, but not all Paporis are Elans. They are, in the lore, as far as I have heard from the original, they are a single race. The distinction between the two was created in order to increase sales of costumes for the extremely popular at the moment Lolita type character. The Baraka, as far as I know, are... As far as I know, they're protectors. They're kind of stone people. I'm trying to remember what exactly their storyline was. It has something to do with it. Oh, here we go. Here's a good way of explaining it. They're kind of like a cursed race. They were cursed, as far as I know, by something. Something happened that changed them into the stone people that they are. As far as I know, that they originally started as fleshies, but now they are stone. And they're like gargoyles. They're like protectors. Let's just go ahead and make a let's just go ahead and do an Elan. That's the that's the race I usually stick with. They're really fun to play with. Their emotes are fucking hilarious and adorable. The character creation menu is fairly extensive. It's not what I would say the most extensive. I would say that it's more extensive than the World of Warcraft character creation, but not a joke. Not even jokingly close to the Black Desert character creation menu. The presets are... I mean, they're okay. They give you a good idea of what's available. it's worth noting that different races have different ways to customize the character. I'll explain it here in just a second. It has to deal with adornments, face, and features. Presets self-explanatory. Features is where it starts to become a little bit more complicated. Whenever you're looking at the Elin class, the familiar that you're choosing and the hairstyle are locked. Some of the familiars have multiple hairstyles, most of them don't. This one is more of a kitsune or a fox type character. This one's a black cat. Not sure exactly what species of black cat. This one's a chipmunk or a squirrel. Pretty self-explanatory. Another chipmunk, squirrel, different hairstyle, different coloring, as far as I know. Okay, not different coloring, but different hairstyle. Rabbit. Pretty self-explanatory. A ram with the horns being wrapped up by the hair. Reminds me of a streamer that I watch. Her name is... His name. Well, technically they haven't said either or way yet, but name is Jacoba. Does a lot of VR chat streaming. Hilarious. Enjoy that person quite a bit. You should check them out. Another rabbit. I believe this is another kitsune or fox type character, or rather, type. What's the word? Familiar. Again, fox. This one I believe is a Scottish fold cat. Don't know why I know that. This one, you've got me. The only thing I can think of is maybe a mouse. Yeah, possibly a mouse. This one's... I'm guessing it's more of a demonic type character. Maybe it's something to deal with the Korean lore. Some type of yokai equivalent for the Koreans. Don't know a whole lot to say about that one. Another cat, black cat, and then another bunny with a floppy ear. I think the character creation is fairly explanatory for the Elans. Getting into what I was explaining before, let's say we choose the ram. Let's say we choose the ram. And this is going to be the familiar that we choose. And let's say we give him red hair. If we move on to the face doesn't... Or, sorry, rather... The hair... This is... I already messed up. Okay. So, the hair is changeable on these characters. Each character can have a different familiar and color variant with the hair. But, if you look, the hair or fur that is attached to their familiar does not change color. So like I was saying, maybe we choose this, and then let's say we, after that, we move on down to the face. This is what I was getting at a second ago. The face and the adornments are linked. Whichever face you choose has a specific set of adornments that come along with it. So let's say we choose face number 1. The adornments on this one are different as far as the face, eyebrows, and irises are concerned, and eye color. So there we go, the little pink teddy bears, for example. I don't believe that you can get those pink teddy bears on any other character. I believe that it changes from character to character. So this one gets a band-aid. I don't believe this one has any caricatures or tattoo type markings on their character face. This one does not either. I'm pretty sure this is the one that I used on my Mystic. We called her Susie Crazy Eyes. It's pretty funny. This one gets tears. There's another band-aid across the nose. Irises get pretty crazy on this one. There's some more swirls. This one gets asterisks underneath the eyes. Actually, I quite like that one. Maybe we'll choose this one. It's a different hairstyle. Another band-aid across the nose. Guessing that's pretty popular, I guess. Fine details, as far as I know, is for basic movement of the bone structure. I don't normally mess with it. Don't want to mess anything up. So just move it back there. That's good enough. That's not going to hurt anything. Outfits. This outfit that you see right here is the... I'm pretty sure this is the one that you start with. The rest of these are just examples of what you can get later on. Voices. For as far as I know, each voice is basically locked to a race. I say that very basically. You can interchange and do whatever you'd like, but as far as I know, the number 5 is the Elin character voice. Next one down is something else. Goes from lowest to highest, I guess, as far as the tone is. We're going to be sticking with number 5, because that one just makes more sense, because it sounds weird for that to be coming out of a character that small. There we go, Maya Mystic. That'll work. That's good enough. Let's go ahead and get started into the game itself when we're already an hour in. So, here is our Mystic. A couple of things to note on the first character screen when getting ready to load in. Location, last online, fairly self-explanatory. Level, self-explanatory. Your name is to the right of your level. Guild name, also self-explanatory. Feats are like achievements. That's the greatest parallel I can think of. And then one that I've skipped over and purposely skipped over for last is rested. Rested is something to think about whenever playing the game. If you're a person that has not a lot of time to get on and play, rested is going to be extremely important for you because it increases the amount of experience that you gain at any one particular it increases the amount of experience gained for a particular amount of time based upon how long you've rested. To become rested, you have to log off in a main city. The ones that I normally stick with are the 3 main city hubs. Most questing zones can be gotten to very easily from any of the main city hubs by using scrolls. I'll be explaining how that all works. It's fairly simple. Worth noting that this game, when trying to compare to other MMOs, is a very, very simple MMO. There's not a whole lot to it as far as questing is concerned, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the most, maybe not the fastest way, but it's definitely the most efficient way to level for anyone beginning the game. So let's go ahead and jump in. Basic combat. No. So the tutorial zone can be skipped. If you do, you will miss basic and combat control instructions as well as story quest rewards. I did not know that they added that. If you have this pop up, I would definitely say no. Definitely no. Do the starting zone. Yes, definitely do the starting zone. I don't see why you wouldn't want to do the starting zone. This seems like a very stupid screen to add to the game. Moving on. I will not be focusing on story. I will not be focusing on lore. Whatever I can remember, I might mention as we go along. But most of this is going to be a guide on how to start up the game and get going. I'm going to be showing you my particular preferences as far as starting the game off, and everything that goes along with it. As far as I'm concerned, you can completely disregard all the pop-ups and everything that's going on, because it's not terribly important. Because I'll be explaining everything. One of the first things that you're going to want to do is, and this is for everybody, I believe everybody should go to their options menu. Let me do that a little bit slower. They should be going to their options menu by pressing the options button on the controller. Cycling left and right through this main menu with L1 and R1 on your controller. You're going over to options. And then you're going to go to control by pressing X. Go down to show extra shortcut tray and turn it on. Do it now. Don't worry about anything else. Do it now. There are a couple of characters which you may want to wait on it on, the brawler being one of them. You might want to wait until after a certain level to get a couple of extra quests unlocked, or rather a couple of extra skills unlocked and learn your skills. Maybe wait till you get off Stepstone Island, which is the tutorial zone, until you turn it on so you can learn some of the skills a little bit more fluidly. But you definitely want to turn your extra shortcut tray on as early as possible so as to learn the shortcut tray as it will be set up. Go ahead and back up. Everything else I don't think completely necessary to mess around with. This is how I've done my volume settings. I forgot to mention at the very beginning of the video, the reason we did not start with the title screen starting up is because it is the loudest title screen that I've ever heard for any game ever, period. It's very loud, so much so that it hurts my ears when trying to listen to it. One of the effects that you might want to turn off while you're still in the options menu Let's go to the display tab and turn others' effects in the city off. This will help with lag whenever you get to your main city hubs. Other than that, press circle to back up. From this screen, you can see that on the bottom we now have an L2 tab to work with, as long as the standard L1 tab. Adding the extra shortcut gets rid of your L2 function on your bottom bar, which would normally be used with other things. Mystics are fairly simple as far as their startup. R2 is your auto attack. Square is how you release your personal healing abilities. Your personal healing ability can also be picked up by other people. Let's see if this person looks good. Pick it up, maybe. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, these balls, these orbs can be dropped by the Mystic. You also get a mana orb that you drop later on. That is for healing you and other party members. It's worth dropping a few of them at the beginning of a boss fight to help with, you know, emergency heals for yourself, as far as I'm concerned, because you heal plenty through everything else. Holding down the button will make you throw the orb quite a bit farther. It's to keep you safe during boss fights. If you need to throw an orb in to have it be picked up by the tank or another melee character per se, it makes it quite a bit easier to get it in there. I found that there's a little bit of bugginess with the throw mechanic for the orbs. I find it's easier just to tap the button, let it completely run off, and then move to the next target, and then, say, drop your next orb in succession. Chain skills in this game will be adding the mana orb later on. Nothing terribly to worry about right now. X is your standard interact button. R1 will be our heal. Triangle becomes one of our basic damage dealing skills. I don't use it too terribly much, but I always keep it on my bar. Extremely important to remember, your circle button is your dodge mechanic for the Mystic. Every race, or every class, has a different dodge mechanic in the game. The Mystics is a short-range teleport. Fairly decent cooldown. You shouldn't ever be in harm's way enough to have the cooldown ever be a problem, but it's there for emergency movement. Holding L1 and pressing the left stick in will make you automatically run. You cannot be moving while this is going, otherwise it will not activate, because it is cancelled by movement. So you'll be standing still, you'll press the button, you'll move in that direction, and then whenever you want to stop, you'll break movement by moving in another direction. Potions get used by pressing the button on your hotbar. That's a health potion, that's a mana potion. Left D-pad is your quick, I want to say it's a quick bar, is more or less what it's like. Right now it's got a health potion, a mana potion, a safe haven teleport scroll, and a battle potion attached to it. Battle potions become very important in the late game. As of right now, they're not terribly important. You get 20 of them. Most of the time they'll get sold. If you've already got something selected and you don't want to use it, you just push in the right stick and it will bring you back to nothing, and then you release the left trigger. Always remember, the left D-pad. Always remember that to keep that screen open, you have to hold the left D-pad down, and as soon as you release the button, it will attempt to use the item that you've selected. That's a safe haven teleport, and we're not going to be teleporting. Moving on, L1X is your jump. That's how you jump around. it's good. It's important to remember that you're coming from a PC version of the game. This is a PC port to console, so they've had to change a few things, and some things are not as intuitive to do. This works out fairly good. I mean, it's not terribly complicated. It works out. Holding L1 to jump around. You can hold L1 and then quickly press X and release both, and you'll jump around just fine. You have to always make sure that the L1 button is pressed first before you press X, though. Movement's fairly good. Another thing that you want to remember is targeting. I personally don't use targeting, but I can see how it could be useful in certain situations. You use targeting by pressing the right stick in on an enemy. These are non-combatants, little big creature things, so you cannot target them. I think that's just about it as far as the beginning stuff. Let's move on to the meat of it and start questing. Red quests are the most important quests as far as I'm concerned. Green quests after that are your Vanguard requests. Those will be explained whenever we get out of the first questing zone. Yellow quests are side quests, or zone quests as they're called in the game. And then beyond that, there are dailies, which are a different colored green quest. I'll be explaining them as soon as we reach each one of them, so let's go.
You look confused,
quest,
child.
Press X upon it to select the quest that we want, and then accept to begin the quest. This first quest requires that you gain a root sample from one of these roots. Just press X button on it, completion bar pops up, boom, you've got your item. Move back to the quest giver.
For the
Complete
Federation.
the quest just by pressing X to get through all of this. Again, we're not concerned with story. Now it says to speak to Anya. Anya is a little girl. Talk to her. She cries quite a bit.
I feel better now.
She wants us to find her doll.
Wait a minute.
Somebody took her doll. So you talk to this little kid, and he tells you they threw the doll in the bush. What a bunch of little brats. Grab the doll. Doll pops out here. Poke the doll. Doll is broken. We need to fix it. So we're going to come over here to this kid.
We're safe
Say,
here,
why
right?
would you be such a brat? He's going to tell us how to fix it. Going to come over here and gather some sticky grass. Going to need 3 of these. Again, all I'm doing for 99% of everything is movement and pressing the X button. Alright, so first quest that you're going to be completing with quest items involves you adding 2 items together. In the PC version of the game, I'm sure this would just be a simple issue of grabbing, or clicking, dragging the item and tossing it on top of another one. In this version of the game, you'll be pressing options, be cycling over to character, dropping down to inventory. From inventory, you're going to be cycling with R1 over to quest items. It's the book. You're going to use the needle and thread, and it will combine the needle and thread, the damaged Zozo, and the sticky grass together to create a repaired Zozo, or a patched Zozo. Now that the bear is fixed, we can exit out of this screen. Move over to Anya. Give the doll back to Anya, she'll be happy. Apparently not as happy as she wants to be because she's still crying. Click on the doll to have tea time with Anya. Wait for a short load screen. And moving on to the next part of the quest.
Looking for me?
Continue on. Now level 2. Every time you level up, this is something I want you to do. We're going to skip through it because I know the class well enough to not have to deal with this, but I want you, whoever it is that's following this guide. First thing I want you to do is, it says press X to learn the skill. Okay, go ahead and learn it. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. First skill that you learned. From now on, whenever you raise a level, every single time you gain a level, I want you to go in and I want you to read the ability. So we're going to read this ability, and you're going to follow along with me if you're playing a Mystic. Metamorphic Blast. Project a cone of divine energy that damages nearby enemies. Activates faster after using Metamorphic Smite. Metamorphic Smite is a chained ability that comes along with Metamorphic Blast later on. We'll get to that. Teleport Jaunt, we've already explained that. Teleport a short distance in the direction of the face of the camera. Soothing Presence and Horizon Run are two racial abilities. Horizon Run is the only one that I've seen that's got any kind of usage. Makes you run faster for a little bit. We'll get to that. Sharon Bolt is your auto attack. Trying to get that out of my mouth. Unleash your bolt of sharing energy at a single target up to 18 meters away. The 18 meters is important. Don't forget that. Arun's Vitae. Gather runic power to create a moat that recovers 390 HP. This increases as you level up every second for 3 seconds and removes all harmful effects. So, it's overpowered. It's a ball on the ground that gets rid of all harmful effects that it's capable of getting rid of, and it also heals the target. Very, very useful. There are glyphs that you can get for it later that allow it to recover the user of the orb's health by a total of 20%. Like I was explaining before, charge up the moat's range by holding down the skill button, then shoot the moat up to 18 meters away by releasing the button. There's that 18 meters again. Remember, I said it's very important. HP recovery effect can stack up to 2 times, which increases the recovery by 30%. So, whenever you drop these, drop them in 2s. If you're going to drop one, drop another one along with it. If you're dropping health orbs, you're going to drop one and then drop another. The reason you want to do that is because for the health orb to be the most effective, to be most efficient at what it does, you want to have 2 of them on whatever one character is trying to get it. Eating only one, or gathering only one will affect you a small amount. Gathering 2 will affect a large amount of HP. There's Metamorphic Smite. Comes available at level 4. We'll read it when we get to it. We're going to exit out of this. We've already learned our skill. We're going to run up to Anya to continue our quests. Everybody keep following along.
Do you want to play?
Accept the quest. Moving on, blah blah blah. Okay, now it's teaching us how to auto-attack. This is an auto-attack. We were looking at this before already. We're going to go ahead and move over here. And just kill these last 3 guys at the edge. So, poke him, and we're going to poke him. The best way to do most of the questing in this game is to gather up your enemies, make them use an ability, and then burn them down. 1, 2, 3. Yellow orbs that you see being thrown into my character are experience. Gold is self-explanatory. Paved Rune of Arun is a crafting item that becomes useful, I'm guessing, later. I have not gotten too terribly far into crafting in this game. As far as I know, it is one of the highest tier items that you can obtain in the game. This is Eamon. You'll be seeing him quite a bit more in this series.
Make it snappy.
He's going to continue our quest. Notice the red star above his head is telling us that the quest is continuing, or sorry, ending from this character, rather. Ending. The red star that means that the quest that you are currently on, the quest chain that you are working on, is about to end. So our completion reward is experience and gold.
What is it, kid?
We've completed the quest. Moving on. It's worth noting that at the very bottom of our screen is an orange bar is a bar that has slowly been increasing. This is our experience. Let me go ahead and check for inventory right quick. It's just the pave runes. I'm a type of person that likes to keep my inventory nice and clean. So, gonna dodge out of that red ability so we don't get hit by it. And the reason I was saying it's important before is that at 20 meters, we're not going to do any damage. Anything less than that, though, and our auto attack hit. Going to continue this direction. And as we start heading up this hill, we're going to pick up some nasty dirt. Again, just a simple issue of clicking on it. Press an X on top of it. If you're close enough to see the X button over the top of it, I'll show you. If you're close enough to see the X button, you can press just the X button, and you will run over to it. So as soon as you see the X button, let go of the stick, and press the X button, and you'll run right over to whatever quest objective or item that you want to interact with. Here's another ending to a quest. Let me get some experience for this one.
What is it, kid?
Level 3. What's our job? Whenever we hit a new level, every single time we get a new level, that was just equipping a new weapon. It becomes very self-explanatory. Options, main menu, inventory. The little I is for relics. That it gets explained later. The sword is for your weapons. Red numbers mean a downgrade. Green numbers mean an upgrade. The two numbers sitting side by side each other means current and potential for your item. That gets explained later with enchanting. Armor, also self-explanatory. Green numbers are upgrades, red numbers are downgrades. Jewelry, we'll get jewelry later on. Another self-explanatory. Green numbers are upgrades, red numbers are downgrades. Crystals are socketable inside weapons, armor, and certain pieces of jewelry. Again, will be explained later. Inventory alchemy. This will hold most of your consumable items. Battle solutions, recovery potions, scrolls, things of that nature. Quest items, self-explanatory items that are context sensitive for quests. Materials, these are crafting materials. Miscellaneous, this houses a bunch of different stuff. The main thing that it does hold are your tokens. They're currencies that open up a separate buying screen to get special items that are pertain to the tokens themselves. Those get explained later on too. Costumes, self-explanatory, cosmetic. At the bottom of the screen down here are your cosmetic slots. Moving on. I do believe that I have another character on this server already. So if we check the banker, check the bank. Let's see if there's anything in here. Yep, there we go. Tokens right there. Level 22 tokens. Let's go ahead and grab these and we'll just kind of keep them on us. Actually, we'll put them up. We'll do this completely fresh character. Tokens, here, I'll show you how they work right quick. Tokens are gained through doing various things. Most of them, I believe, will be gained through doing Vanguard requests. But if you look, you can click on it. It's a level 22 token. This is the first token that you'll gain access to. And these normally give you access to appropriate dungeon quest drops. So, these are for level 22. These would be the items that you get for a particular dungeon or certain dungeon drops.
Need help, kid?
Go ahead and push these back up. We're also going to put up our patrons because we're not going to be using them anytime soon. It's worth keeping your inventory clean early game. You don't want to deal with not having enough inventory space whenever it's time to upgrade a weapon or complete a quest.
Stay healthy,
Makes everything take
stay
longer.
safe.
Just keep up with it as you go. Merchants, self-explanatory. Top of the screen, you've either got buying or selling. Lots of gear in the game can only be gotten rid of by selling it. Your standard issue scepter is one of those items. We'll keep the potions for now, but most of the time I get rid of them. They're not 100% necessary. Buying items, yeah, these are outcasts. Outcasts are used for increasing the enchantment level upon certain items. That it gets explained later, we'll get into that. Featherlight potions, I don't see it huge use for them. There's no real call for jumping off of high cliffs. Pet treats are used for specialty pets that do specific tasks, whether it's add inventory space as a bank pet, or do auto looting for you. Those are normally bought through the store, so unless you get a free one, I don't see the big difference, or the big coupon for getting them. You can normally pick up things yourself. Identification scrolls are used for masterworking equipment. This happens quite a bit later on in the end game. We'll explain it there when we get there, which is no time soon. Moving over to the next tab in the buy store is the potions. As far as I'm concerned, the only useful thing in this entire screen is the prime battle solutions, because you'll be using those pretty much constantly whenever you get to level 65 to do any amount of dungeoning. The next most useful one is probably the prime recovery potable. I don't believe that the mana recovery potables are very useful, because there are extensive means in order to replace your mana in the game for all characters. And whenever you're doing dungeons at a later level, I'm pretty sure that your mana stays pretty well taken care of. Mana is not a huge issue in the game. You can usually skip buying those. Continuing with the quests, moving on to the next quest giver. Red question mark means that there is a quest to be gained. We're going to poke this little sapling. The little kids are going to talk. Talk to Glennock again. And we're going to wait for her to stop chanting, and she'll become active to talk to. Interact with her, and she's going to show us to a cave. That will begin the meat of the game, or the meat of the storyline of the game. Ooh. Looking on the right-hand side of the screen, at the top right is your map. The name of the area that you're currently in is in the top left-hand portion of that. To the left of that, towards the middle of the screen, is your buffs. That can be accessed and monitored by pressing the big square button touchpad in the middle of your controller, pushing it in, and then pressing triangle. And you can look at the effects by pressing left and right. Don't try to press up and down, it doesn't help. Just press left and right and it will show you what's going on with it. You can change your settings through this portion. Big square button in the middle of the controller, or the touchscreen in the middle of the controller, also opens your map. To gain access to the world map, you just press square. It will normally show the province that you're in first. By pressing circle, you can zoom out later on. Bottom left-hand corner is the chat. You press L1 and R1 to cycle through the different tabs, and then L2 and R2 will cycle through the types of chat that you'll be speaking to. Down will try to answer a whisper that's been sent to you recently. Up will try to retype something that you've already said. Square will allow you to cycle through and select certain characters from the chat to whisper and or talk to. Triangle opens the typing menu. Not 100% sure what. Oh, okay. So keeping the chat completely open is by pressing R3. Didn't ever notice that before. Look at me, learning something new every day now. By having scale UI size down open means that the chat will stay active, and then having it down will have the chat go away, which is, I probably prefer it that way. I would imagine health and mana are fairly specific, fairly self-explanatory. Red bar and blue bar. Below the map on the right-hand side is the colors of quests that I was pertaining to earlier. The blue one next to it shows you where on the where the priority of the quest has been placed. It's normally automatic. You can change it a bit by selecting which quests you are and aren't following at any one particular time. If you look on the map, there's an aura of blue that shows you the area in which the next quest objective is located. In our case, it's the sap jar. Another loading screen will get the next portion of the game started. Gonna talk to Anya.
Oh, hello.
Gained another level. It's worth backing up behind the jar over here so you don't get aggroed by those minions that will spawn. So you can do what it is that you need to do, which is jump in and see what are the new abilities. We've got Metamorphic Smite now. This chains with your Metamorphic Blast. You'll see how here in just a minute. Damages targets within 5 meters, has a chance to knock them down. Activates faster if used after Metamorphic Blast. So, learn this. Sharon Bolt, we already know what that is. This is just upgrading it, makes it do more damage. And that is it for this. Now Sharon Bolt has been upgraded, and we now have a ability chain. Alright, skill chain. So let's make these mobs angry. And we'll press it once, press it twice, press it 3 times, and that would be the end of that particular chain. After it comes off of cooldown, you can see how fast it activates. Fairly useful. Now we're going to leave the cave. More enemies are going to spawn, just kind of kill them as you go. Kill 4 of them. Talk to Jalka. Moving on down the stairs. Need to kill 2 of everything. Get that to turn learn that. There we go. Now we learn how to dodge according to the game. We already knew how to do that though. That would be a stun. See what a stun looks like. I'm not terribly concerned with my health right now because this stuff drops everywhere. Same thing with mana. Wait for all the mobs to die.
Hey, what?
There's Eamon again. Undefeatable boss coming up. It's part of the story. He usually spawns on the bridge over here. We can get started on defeating him by coming over here. Start dealing some damage. There we go. No longer taking damage. It's time to move on. Pressing R3 will lock on. There we go. I'm gonna hit us like that, and then we're gonna do another cutscene. Unavoidable stun. There's nothing you can do about it. Watch the cutscenes at your leisure. Some of them are okay. The dialogue is a little funny.
What brings you here?
Completing a quest, possibly leveling. There we go. What do we do every time we level? Check for skills. No new skills. Check our inventory. Looks like we got some armor. Now we're blue. continue on out of here.
Is this worth my time?
Talk to Eamon. Now we gotta go find Anya. Ooh. First episode's always going to be a long one.
Is
Trying to get
someone
through the
there?
bulk of the story, or bulk of the
How can I help?
learning. I'm going to talk to Anya, going to talk to the gentleman that spawns, and they're going to talk back to Anya again.
Where?
Now it's going to teach us to jump. L1X, jump over the doors. Just continue walking. Going to talk to the older lady standing there. Moving along again, you're going to talk to the gentleman sitting on the ground. Going to talk to Anya as soon as she stops running. Should be about up here next to these flowers. There we go. Again, leveled up. Gonna check our skills. Just make a habit out of doing this. It will happen less and less often, so don't worry about it. Looks like we have gained access to our Thrall of Protection. Alright, let's go ahead and learn him. Command Follow and Command Attack. And an upgrade to Utterance Vitae. Okay, we're going to look at our skills. We know what Utterance Vitae is. That's our little health orbs. Getting an upgrade for that. Thrall of Protection. Summon the Thrall of Protection that uses melee attacks to draw aggro from monsters and defend the summoner. Lasts 10 minutes until death. Summoning a Thrall of Life will cancel Thrall of Protection. Thrall of Life is something we'll get into later. It has to do with our summons. You cannot have a Thrall of Life and a Thrall of Protection up at the same time. It's one or the other. They have an interesting mechanic that works in between them that becomes useful later on, and it will be explained when we get there. Command Follow and Command Attack are useful to a degree that I will be showing you how they work. Command Attack, aim at a target within 24 meters and press the skill button to command your summoned creature to attack the target. This is for your Thrall of Protection only. Same thing with Command Follow. Command your Thrall to follow you. Command Follow is going to be your most used skill of the two. You will, if you want to, use the Command Attack every once in a while to help him be attacking the correct target, mostly bosses and such. But now we're going to be looking at adding shortcuts. To add a shortcut, you're going to use the R3 button. This will bring up all of the bars that you have access to. And what we're going to do is we're going to add attack to R2. Again, do this however you like, but if you're going to be following along, I'm going to be referring to these abilities and their placement on the bar with the appropriate combo buttons to select them. Again, I'm going to go from Command Attack to go to Command Follow. You'll always start in the bottom left-hand corner. You can move through and around your different slots by using either the stick or the D-pad. I prefer the D-pad, but we're going to be placing these skills on the third bar that we activated earlier. This is why I say it's important to have that third bar activated, because it becomes extremely useful to have these. I'm going to place this here, and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to move our health potions. We're going to move this one here, and move this one here, and then we're going to delete this one, delete this one. We're going to move our scrolls over here, and this is all done by pressing X and square. It's on the bottom of the screen. It shows you how to do all of this. And then we're also going to move our potions down here. This activation bar is useful for our auras and other abilities later on. We're going to be adding one ability to it, which is Horizon Run, to the very top up here. Like I said, it's the only one that I found it use for. Soothing Presence is probably useful. I haven't found a use for it yet. We'll be getting to that later. The health potion and the mana potion will be gotten rid of later on. Right now we'll keep it there just in case. Okay, we're going to back out of all this, and now we can see that our bar has now changed. We now have abilities that we can use on this last bar. Another thing we can look at is we can look at our quick menu. And it's got Horizon Run. All Horizon Run does is make you run a little bit faster and I think it's useful for getting around to different quests a little bit quicker. Before we continue with our questing, now they want us to murder these poor bears, and this is when we're going to start learning about summons. To summon your first summon, you're going to hold down L1 and press square. This is important to get used to the time it takes to summon this creature, because if you are attacked or knocked down in any which way while you're trying to summon this, it will more than likely cancel the summon. Not having your Thrall of Protection up is very not good. This Thrall of Protection is extremely useful for keeping you alive. The best way to run around with your Thrall of Protection to get him to grab mobs so you can kill them efficiently is to have him follow you by pressing L2 R1 on your bar, and as you can see, as he runs through them, he has an aura of aggro. He just naturally aggroes everything that he gets near. And you're going to bring him into an opening, and then you're going to use L1 R2 to have him start attacking, let them gain aggro, stay a safe distance away, and burn all of the enemies there. So pick up your spoils. Now that we've killed one of these, now we need to kill only one of this guy. And now since we only need one of him, we're just going to poke just the one. And we're going to keep our Thrall of Protection back here. This keeps him from running over and aggroing everything. We're going to get our Thrall of Protection to attack this target. That will get him started on it. I'm not going to be explaining this every single time. This is going to be our only explanation on Stepstone Island. The rest of the time, I will just be playing the character. The Thrall of Protection does quite a bit of damage early on, and can take care of themselves pretty much. When you're moving through this bear pack, make sure that you start running, and keep your Thrall of Protection on you. You're just going to keep running through with the Mystic. On other characters, you don't have to deal with this, but on the Mystic, we're just going to keep running through, and we're going to stop about right here. We're going to let these mobs come up to us. We're going to have our Thrall of Protection attack them. And the same thing we did a second ago. We're just going to clear the mobs off. This is going to be something that we're going to have to do every once in a while. As far as I'm concerned, it's a minor irritation for the amount of brokenness that the Mystic has. This is Payson. You're going to see him quite a bit more in the story of the late game. But for right now, this is Payson. This is one of my favorite NPCs in the entire game. Going to talk to Payson. After you kill the bears, you're going to run up, talk to Payson, and you're going to talk to Anya.
Hey, where is
And
everybody?
you're going to poke some of these. Wait for the actual Argon Detector 1 or 3 to pop before you try to walk away from it. Otherwise, you will not get the completion for poking it. Do 3 of them. Move on back to Payson. Complete this quest. Just burn through it. You can read if you like. There's a small storyline that goes along with all of this stuff with the big tree in the background. It's an okay storyline. You're going to run up to this post, and once you get close enough to the area, it's going to complete the quest. There are a few quests in the game that you have to do that. Some of them don't give a whole lot of direction as to where to go. That's a lot of reason why I'm making this guide, because I have had plenty of fun trying to figure all of this stuff out. And since I've done all of these quests fairly recently, I'm going to be showing you all of the main storyline quests.
Victory for Valkion.
I'm going to continue talking to Google.
What can I tell you?
Get some new items. This is going to be another quest in which you need to look in your quest item inventory, but if we look, just gained another level, so what are we going to do? We're going to look at our skills. Boomerang Pulse. Boomerang Pulse fire a rebounding bolt which damages all enemies in its path and also heals group members in its path by 728. This will heal. This will be increased as you level up, and also gets modified by your heal bonus. Using this skill does not automatically start combat status. Now, the reason that's important is because what you can do is you can attack a boss without adding aggro to it. Pretty good. Another reason this is good is you can heal and attack at the same time by throwing your boomerang pulse through an enemy and your allies at the same time. Very useful ability. Extremely high damage early on. You'll be seeing this used quite a bit. This is one of my favorite abilities. It normally takes the place of Metamorphic Blast as soon as I start using it. So, we're going to Boomerang Pulse. Better than that. Metamorphic Blast, that's an upgrade. Metamorphic Smite, we've already learned that one, it's an upgrade. Thermal Protection, we've already learned this one, it's an upgrade. We're going to flick over to Inventory. And we're going to put on our new clothes. Now we're green. Look at us go. Going to get a new staff. And we're going to read our quest item, which is in the quest items inventory.
Victory for Valkion.
Close the letter. It increases, or it advances the
What
quest.
can I tell you?
Complete the quest. Moving on. Now we're going to cross the bridge. Can't remember if you have to jump over this tree branch or not, but I just jump over them all so I don't get slowed down at all. And then the rest of them you can move straight along forward through. Zooming in and out is by opening up the touchpad button in the middle of your controller and holding it down. You will stop the first time whenever you get this close to your character, and it still allows full movement of the screen or the camera. The next one down is if you tap the button again. This brings you into a over-the-shoulder type position. I don't like being zoomed in at all. We'll just get that out of the way right quick. And then after that, you can do a extreme zoom for pictures, I guess, and whatnot. Just by tapping the button, you can increase or decrease the zoom for your, I guess, picture-taking needs or screenshotting needs. You can go into screenshot mode by pressing right on the D-pad from the touchpad screen. But normally, the way we'll be playing is completely zoomed out. It's a little bit more difficult in dungeons, but if you get used to it, it doesn't become that much of a problem. Moving on through the quests. There's a perfectly good pack right over here on the left. And the first thing that we're going to do is, remembering that we opened a new bar, normally, without the third bar, L2 would normally be your standard location for your Boomerang Pulse. But, because we have the third bar active, our L2 activates our third bar. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to scroll down through our active skills, get down to Boomerang Pulse, and add a shortcut for it. The place that I normally place it is right here on square, and then your health ball gets moved to the previous location of your health potion. So now we have our health ball on up D-pad, and our Boomerang Pulse, which does ridiculous amounts of damage, is on our square, so we can press that. And we only have to kill one pack of these, and then we can move on. It's worth remembering to be efficient while you're leveling. If you don't have a lot of time to play the game at all times of the day, to just move through the questing zones. Keep that on your mind. Just move through the questing zone. Don't get hung up by, killing every single little thing that may attract or follow you. Most things will de-aggro and leave you alone. Especially here in this first questing zone. Just move around the enemies and don't let your thrall aggro them if you're playing a Mystic. If you're not playing a Mystic, you probably don't have to worry about any of that anymore.
All for one, one for all.
Completing the quest. Leveled up again. No new skills to learn. Going to inventory, we're going to go ahead and put on our 2 rings. Rings are normally your attack modifier jewelry items. This increases your ability to hit things hard. That's pretty much it. And we're going to keep moving on. We're actually going to go ahead and use a battle potion to increase our damage a little bit. Another cutscene. We're going to skip through this one. And we have to kill 3 of these Argon soldiers. So, same as before. We're going to get our thrall. Yank them through the Argon soldiers. We're going to grab 3 of them. By pressing L2R1 every time he gets close to one, we'll keep him from stopping and trying to attack them. We'll keep the mob moving. Press R2 to get him to start attacking them. We're going to line up a Boomerang Pulse, shoot it through them, and basically one-shot everything. Boomerang Pulse is extremely powerful early on. Boomerang Pulse, because I was an idiot and didn't show you, works like this. It shoots out straight in front of you, and then comes straight back, just like that. nothing terribly complicated. This is what I was talking about before. If something aggroes to you, don't worry about it. Your thrall can mostly take care of himself as long as you're not trying to give him orders. Gonna move over to this guy, which is over here from the previous questing, or killing area, I guess, whatever. And we're gonna keep going. As long as you're not standing in the red whenever he gets attacked, you'll be fine. Just keep moving. You're gonna keep moving through the questing zone. If you're not concerned with the story, which I know a lot of people aren't, then don't worry about it. Just keep moving through the questing zone. Now it wants us to kill some of these guys, and if your thrall is too far away and you want him to hurry his butt up, L1 square, summon him again. Boom, he's right on top of you again. Let's poke 3 of these guys and get them involved in the fight. Okay, see the yellow tag above this monster's head? That means he's trying to de-aggro. He's trying to leave the fight. If we leave him alone enough, boom, there he goes. He leaves the fight. Go ahead and kill the rest of these monsters. So we can advance our quest. Pick up our loot. And then we're going to move over to this gentleman that's on the ground over here. I'm going to go ahead and kill this one right here just in case. Go. A longer threat. Get the loot right quick. We're going to talk to this gentleman. And then also another quest item. Going to go to inventory. Click over to quest items using L1, R1. And we're going to launch this flare. Complete his quest. We're going to go ahead and move up the hill just in case so we don't aggro anything. We leveled up, so we're going to check our skills again. Thrall of Vengeance. This is where it starts getting interesting. Thrall of Vengeance. Summon a Thrall of Vengeance that attacks your enemies at range, lasts 60 seconds or until death. Summoning a Thrall of Wrath will cancel the Thrall of Vengeance. Your Thrall of Wrath is your, I want to say your quote-unquote ulti ability. It's the one that goes on the longest cooldown and deals the most damage of your summons. Pretty self-explanatory. It's another summon. This is your damage summon. The Thrall of Protection is your mitigation or tank summon. Your Thrall of Life is also what I would consider another mitigation summon, because it mitigates the damage or it helps to deal with damage taken on your character by healing you. Thrall of Protection keeps you from taking the damage in the first place by pulling aggro. Thrall of Vengeance is a ranged stationary turret. Best way of explaining that. I call him Zappy Boy, so let's go ahead and learn this. Sharon Bolt, we already know what that is. That's our auto attack. That's just Sharon Bolt number 2. It's getting an upgrade. Back out of this. And the Thrall of Vengeance is attached to the Thrall of Protection by use of chain skills. So the way the game wants you to do it is to go press square and summon your Thrall of Protection, and then afterwards summon your Thrall of Vengeance right after. I find that highly, highly ineffective and extremely annoying. So what I do is I take my Thrall of Vengeance and put him on his own separate bar at the top. This is why I was saying that the third bar is so important, especially on Mystics, because they have so many summons and so many auras and different skills that need to be shown. It's just important to have these abilities shown on your bar for easy showing ability. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next questing zone, and then I will show you what the Thrall of Vengeance looks like and why I call him Zappy Boy. Zappy Boy is also a name of a or I'm guessing it's a pet name for a character from the World of Warcraft series, most recently from the Battle for Azeroth expansion. It is a mage character from the Horde. He's a what are they called? Troll. He's a troll. He's a troll mage, and he uses a Zappy ability, which is why they call him Zappy Boy. Running into this room. Gonna get some summons. We're gonna go ahead and get our Thrall of Protection up. And we're going to start from right here. And the Thrall of Protection is quite a bit slower than you, so you have to kind of play around that. Go ahead and get your Thrall of Protection ready to go. Get your L2 ready to go. And we're going to start running through these mobs. We're going to run through them, and then we're going to make our Thrall follow on the first one. This will keep him from stopping and trying to fight all of them. It's useful to do it every once in a while. It makes him stop to acknowledge the command. Just watch. See, it makes him stop to acknowledge your command. So if you do it too much, he'll get too far away. But what we can do is we can gather all these enemies up. Go ahead and get our Thrall attacking the main enemy. And we can stay out of harm's way. And do a boomerang bolt through it. He's so powerful, he pretty much wipes half of that group anyway. As soon as these mobs are dead, down these stairs will be the next portion of the fight. I believe you can start doing early damage to this guy just by waiting for him to come along. Gonna move out of that skill. The boomerang does damage when it goes out and hits the target and when it comes back. So it's best to keep your targets at a medium range. You don't want the ball to touch the target and then come directly back to you, because then it will only deal its damage once.
Victory for Valkyrie.
You want it to go through the target and then come straight back out. So if the Thrall of Protection was my target, I want the ball to go through him once and then come straight back through him. I don't want the ball to go all the way out, touch the target once, and then come straight back. So you don't want to be too far away when using the pulse ability. Right-hand side of the screen, it's trying to teach us how to target enemies again. Right, we got rid of it. Thrall of Protection. Run him up. Go ahead and get that off the screen again. And then we're going to punch our target once with the ball, and he will automatically start attacking. I'm going to drop a Zappy Boy right there behind the enemy. This is what he looks like. And as you can see, we have completely skipped an extremely large portion of this fight purely because the Mystic is so overpowered. I did not know that was going to happen like that. Like I said, the Mystic is very broken right now. In that fight, what should have happened is the boss gets down to a certain amount of health, and then he tries to stun you again, and then what will happen is that Anya tries to save you. Or Anya does save you by sacrificing herself to the tree, and that breaks your stun, and instead of you getting your ass kicked, you get to complete and finish the boss. Now we're going to run over to Anya since we completed the fight so quickly, and we're going to go ahead and activate her. This will do the next cutscene. Tree starts falling apart, so we're going to go and talk to Dougal.
What can I tell you?
Complete the quest. This will teleport us out. Don't forget to grab all the loot that the boss drops. That's your first full set of jewelry. It's good to have. It gets you started. We're going to talk to the old man.
Something I can help with.
We leveled up, but we're going to go ahead and keep going. Right now it's fine. We're just going to go ahead and finish these quests.
What can I tell you?
Talk to everybody, get through the cutscene.
Victory for Valkyrie.
There we go. Alright, now we're going to talk to Orabellis here in just a second, but we're going to utilize the merchants to clean our inventory right quick. This is the end of the tutorial zone, so we're going to use that. And we're going to make sure that we have no upgrades. Necklace and 2 earrings. I don't keep strong boxes. They're useless to me as far as I am concerned because it requires you to buy a key from the real life shop, or the real money shop. There's Payson again, my favorite buddy.
You can't
Gonna go to the
prove
merchant,
anything.
and we're going to, like I said before, there's only one way to get rid of some of these items, and this is how you do it. Later on, we will be breaking down our equipment instead of selling it. and that will be how it's gotten rid of. Everything else, though, we're going to go ahead and continue on. We're going to go ahead and get rid of our useless potions right now. So we're going to get rid of this one, useless, and this one, useless. Go ahead and sell them. We'll keep the battle solutions for right now. Alright, super clean inventory. And go back. And we're going to look at our shortcuts to clean our shortcuts up now that we don't have these abilities anymore. Do not worry about what item you have to select in order to get to your shortcuts menu. Just get to the shortcuts menu. So I normally go to the alchemies tab and just click on my battle solution and then press R3 on the top of it. And then you can delete things out of your shortcut just by doing this. So we're going to get rid of these 2 potions and clean that inventory, our bar up. And we're going to move along. We've cleaned up our inventory. We've made sure that we're completely leveled up. We put all our new items on, and we're ready to move out of Stepstone Island and into Velica.
May memory endure.
It's worth remembering that if you have a group of friends that you're going to be playing with, and you guys decide to start a guild, that it's important for experience for the guild that you join your guild at level 5 while you're still on Stepstone Island. We're going to go ahead and fly to Velica. This is going to be one of the only times you will ever see me use a flight manager, because I think that the flight paths are tedious and boring to watch. That's just me. Scrolls, as far as I'm concerned, are king as far as movement in this game. They're not terribly expensive, and they're much faster than using the flight masters. A little over 2 hours. That's not bad for the first big explanation of the game. As of right now that we're off Stepstone Island, we're moving into the main meat of the game. I'm not going to be explaining everything in massive detail anymore. I'm not going to be stopping to tell you exactly what I'm doing word for word anymore. For anybody that needs to look at the basics of questing and how all of that works, I recommend you to this first episode. Go ahead and rewatch it if you missed something. I'm pretty sure I covered just about everything that there is to know for this portion of the game. There's still a few minor tutorial things that we need to learn about, but they get introduced pretty organically into the game, slowly and not all at once, so you're not having to learn everything all at once. I think the first thing that we're going to do is, I think we're going to go ahead and just stop right here. As soon as you get off the platform, or as soon as you get off the horse, you'll be on the Flight Master's platform, and the next gentleman that we're talking to is that guy right over there. Thank you for joining me on the first episode. I know it was a very long episode, but I wanted to record Stepstone Island as a full experience first, because it gets through the main meat of exploring the game and learning a lot of the basic things that you want to be doing on a regular basis for the leveling process. Whenever we get towards the end game, we may be switching over to the other server so I can show you what it's like to make parties and do dungeons and raids and some of the other things that are attached to the game. But in the next episode, we're going to be looking at some of the some more tutorial-y type things. We're going to be explaining Vanguard requests and how they are structured in the game, and any kind of parallels that I can think of to help explain it will be used. We're also going to be explaining enchanting. I'm going to touch on bank tabs. We're going to check out the trade broker, which is where you'll probably be getting most of your cosmetics Instead, we're going to be explaining fashion coupons and how they work, and we're going to be looking at the first true leveling zone. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you later. Oh look, a dragon. They must have been coming from Kayator.